Once we begin tuning into the resonance of abundance and choosing the matrix of abundance, all that matters is that we fine-tune our sensitivities to that vibration. So that is why we become more sensitive, not less sensitive. That's why we move more towards connection rather than further away from connection. And so this week I wanted to leave you guys with the thought of who and what energies are you connecting with, and what story are you giving? What perspective are you seeing that through? When you look at your connections with people in the world around you through the lack matrix perspective, which is that it's all separate from you, it's controlling you, it's more powerful than you, or it's out of your control, whatever it is that you feel, it causes more anxiety and more separation. But from the perspective of the abundance matrix, everything is connected. So the universe itself becomes the energy that you learn to surf, to play with, to interact with. You become co-creators, sovereign creators, and you focus your attention much differently than you do when you're in a separation paradigm, because a separation paradigm is all about survival. An abundance paradigm is all about thriving. How can we thrive? How can we heal? How can we move closer? How can we understand each other better? But this work is done not from necessarily a physical perspective with other people, but I want to introduce to you the concept of the astral realm, the pre-manifested realm where our resonance begins, where all things exist, and where we all are connecting as we connect to the human heart. Take a few moments before you go into the material in the next slide and connect to your heart chakra. And imagine that you're dropping into the tiniest space in your heart chakra, the space where all things exist. And see and feel the light of your heart chakra expand all around you, past your body, past the room you're in, past the house or the apartment, past the neighborhood, all through the state you're in. See that light going all through the planet, everywhere on the planet, around the planet, in the galaxy around you, and keep just expanding that light out until you get to the source of all things, just light, or it might be dark, just the void, whatever it is, that space of the 0-point gravity where all things exist. You can create anything from here. And remember, this is within your heart. Now imagine that this resonance is the true harmony of creation. And as you feel the resonance of all things, imagine your consciousness coming back awake through your body, through your heart, and feel your heart connected to the heart of humanity, the most vulnerable space in the heart of humanity. And allow yourself to connect to abundance there. Say out loud, I allow whatever needs to be met, whatever needs that need to be met in the human heart, in our most vulnerable places, that they would be met. I allow those needs to be met within me. I allow the most vulnerable places in my heart to be healed and restored to the heart of humanity, to the heart of the universe, to the heart of creation. You might want to take just a few moments to feel this space and remember that this is the space we're connecting from, not from the old paradigm, but from the heart. Imagine all the hearts connected around you as one heart, the heart of creation. And connect to that life force that flows through the heart, the spirit of life that is connected to all things and runs through all things. This is the network of abundance. This is the wave of creation, the cutting edge of creation that you are riding on. So we know that life is about cycles. And if we can learn anything from nature, is that there's life and there's death, and things continue on. And death isn't the end. When winter comes, even though everything dies, its life potential is still dormant within. And then when summer comes or spring comes, life comes again, and it's renewed all the time. And that is how we grow and expand. So when we're in a process or in a matrix of lack, we see death as final. We see endings as final. We see time very linear. We were born here, we die here, and that's the end. We don't see a connection to all things, and we certainly don't see ourselves from the larger perspective of evolution. When you're in the abundance matrix, you see all of it. You're connected to the eternal nature of all things, and you're connected to that cycle that we are continually going through, that life and death process, where our consciousness is now dying and coming back to life in different ways. And so, as we learn to interact with the matrix of abundance, it becomes a powerful tantric cycle. Now, Tantra is energy exchange. A lot of people associate it directly with sex, but that's a misunderstanding of what it is, because it's actually the energy of giving and receiving, the intimacy of creation itself. So connecting to the astral network or the abundance network, we're connecting to the cycle of empowerment, where our human consciousness remembers that it's connected to all things and begins to see itself as an avatar and as the human perspective. It's both. And that's why I love this concept of the astral network, because when we connect out of body, when we connect just in the space of ideas, of energy, of resonance, it's not about the ego. We're not even seeing each other necessarily face to face. We're experiencing each other's energies in this abundance matrix, and we're moving and shifting and riding the energies and then creating a story around it through our perception. And that perception involves our whole story. We can't just pretend we didn't come from where we came from. We can't pretend we didn't come from a fallen state, and a state in which we believed for so long that we were separate. So when we're in an abundance matrix, there's still separation and contrast, but we begin to put the pieces together and see how all of that contrast is connected. And no matter what level you look at it, at the quantum level, through patterning in nature and sacred geometry, it's all connected. It all, even the chaos is beautifully connected. And everything in nature, if you again look at cycles, how nature is, it is not linear straight lines. It's curves and spirals. That is the real nature of creation and creative force and creative power. So when you think of this abundance matrix and you feel the resonance of it, it feels like that natural, it feels like aligning and harmonizing with the natural patterns of nature of what we are, rather than resisting against it, which is what we do in the separation paradigm. That's what we do in the lack paradigm. So this week, think about how you are, as you learn to fine-tune your resonance to abundance, you are entering into an empowerment tantric cycle with yourself, with your own creative sovereignty. This is where you get to release all the storylines that you've been told, release the matrices that you've been subject to, and release them in gratitude, and start to find what your story is within that larger story. Our personal truth is what feels most resonant to our heart and what we've experienced, because where we have been wounded as children and through the programming of the lack matrix, that's where we're reconnecting to. We're reconnecting to our whole restored hearts, and from the perspective that we're good and that we are sovereign. So we can't discount where we've been and what we've been through. But what's happening right now on a global level with the majority, in the sense of what people are putting out, is we're feeling shame and guilt about what we are as humans. And so we are trying to bully and intimidate each other into agreeing to ways of being that will not emphasize our darkness. So in other words, we're trying to control other people to not have to look at what we are, not have to look at the truth of what we are. But when we enter to the abundance matrix, there is pure grace. There's not a belief that we are bad or wrong. It's just an understanding of we have been in the story of the human story. So we have separated ourselves from our own higher consciousness to experience what that lack is like, so that we have a more expanded understanding of what we actually are. So we know what we are by understanding what we're not. So now we're remembering who we are, remembering ourselves. This is connected to our story. And so this week, I really want you to, as you're tuning into the tune or the resonance of abundance, to connect to your personal story. The resonance of abundance for you is going to feel soft and safe for your heart. It's going to feel like your heart's being seen and heard and accounted for, and all your sensitivities are being taken into account. Not treating you like you are handicapped, but in the sense of course you're sensitive, because you have the task of fine-tuning yourself to source, to allowing source to come fully into your body. And that is an intimate, sexual, aka spiritual experience. Sexuality and spirituality are the same thing. So this is where we learn to make love to our own higher self and to our own lower self, our body, all the things that makes us human as well. I call it an empowerment cycle is because here in the abundance paradigm, we remember what we've been talking about, which is that we are all roles. We have played all roles. And in this cycle, we are the avatar. We have overcome or integrated all roles of the human story. And now from that space, we say, how can we embody this so that other humans can see what they are? And it's actually not even a how, it's a allowing. It's a state of allowing more and more and more power, more and more and more life force to be within you. And the only places where we block life force is where we have beliefs, dominant beliefs, usually unconscious, that are telling us we can't have life force in our bodies for whatever reason. And that's connected to the lack paradigm. So this week, as you connect to your heart, remember that when you connect to your restored heart, you're connecting to the matrix of abundance. You're connecting to the astral network where we are constructing, so to speak. At least the human mind is starting to understand what heaven on earth feels like and looks like, and how it is embodied in the most practical sense. So we are becoming more physical, more connected to the earth, and how we approach it determines everything. It determines how we experience it. So when we are in the lack matrix, we are at war with ourselves, and we tend to get large boners for war when we're at war with ourselves, because it's our ego fighting against our creative self that's free and wild and untamed, and it's all of our insecurities that believe we're unsafe, and it's all of the spaces in us where we have been hurt and where we don't believe that we are going to be taken care of. And so it's a reparenting of ourselves. This is a space of allowing, getting really familiar with where your needs are, where they haven't been met in the past, and simply allowing them to be met. It's a place of incredible grace and forgiveness, and it's a place where we can embrace our enemy truly, because it is an aspect of us. The enemy, quote unquote, is the part of us that have been separated from the knowledge that we are connected to source. And so it's created a reality because our minds create what we believe. It's literally constructed a reality of separation, and that has been our actual experience, and that is our story. So we can't discount that story. We can't separate ourselves from what we have been and claim the inheritance of evolution. You can't step into that space of thriving in that evolution and that power and say, but yeah, I don't want any connection with my past self, because your past self is what gave you the ability to hold the kind of power and creative sovereignty that you have. So this is a time of self-acceptance, and it's a time of self-awareness, and a time of adjusting our self-resonance to love, No matter what is happening, no matter what selfish feelings have come up, no matter what things you've seen about other people, no matter how much darkness you've seen, there is never an excuse to withhold love or withhold light. Never. What matters is how we approach it, how we do it, and from what fundamental belief. If we are trying to restore ourselves from a fundamental belief that we are wrong and bad and undeserving, it will never work, because you can't believe you're wrong and bad and undeserving and yet open yourself up to love. You have to be able to understand that all things are worthy of love, just simply by being. So as you connect to your heart and practice the resonance of abundance this week, allow yourself to practice the energy cycle of Tantra with yourself, of making love to yourself, making love to the universe. How would you want your lover to treat you? So imagine this as you're getting stronger, and it takes a lot of vulnerability to trust the universe and to trust again, especially where we've been hurt. But you can take the analogy of your partner in a sexual relationship. When you are having a sexual relationship with someone, you have to be sensitive to their needs and their wants and their triggers, or else the sex isn't good. If you just plow through things and if you're not sensitive to each other, the connection is not happening. And what could be an incredibly deeply, profoundly life-changing experience can just be something that's painful even, and hurtful and detrimental, and separates us from ourselves. And we have to remember that's what's happening right now. We are interacting with the universe at the most intimate levels of creation, and how we approach that matters. So how are you approaching your creation? How are you approaching your life, your story, yourself, your DNA, your humanity? How are you approaching others? It's really important to listen to what's needed. It's not out of a sense of obligation. Again, going back to the example of partners, you don't listen to your partner because you have to and you're just trying to get it over with. You listen because you want them to have a good experience. You want it to be pleasing to them, because when it's pleasing to them, it's more pleasing to you. And so it pays off to listen, and it pays off to be sensitive. And at the same time, in order to have good sex, you also have to be aware of your wants and your needs and your desires, and you find a way to make those things harmonize with mutual respect. That is the exact same energy we create with in the abundance paradigm. If we want it to feel like heaven on earth, we have to be able to listen to each other, listen to our own needs, and listen to the needs of the grid, and allow ourselves to interact with it in a way that's loving, that's intentional, that's passionate where it needs to be, that's soft where it needs to be, that's firm where it needs to be, that's intense where it needs to be. So it's none of the resonances of the human experience is wrong. None of them. Context matters, and that's where sensitivity comes in, and that's where discernment comes in, and that is the distinguishing mark of a master creator, is focus, tuning in to actually what is needed in order to bring harmony. And usually that requires tuning everyone else out. That requires tuning out of the lack matrix, because the loudest voice is lack. And it's important that we tune out of that and tune into what our true inner needs are. It's usually the subtle needs. And it's that poetry when we enter into the subtle ways the universe loves us that we start to really trust. So my challenge to you this week is to feel your empowerment, feel what it feels like to allow your sensitivities to attune you to the grid of abundance. And when you become a servant of the grid of abundance, you become a servant to the heart of humanity. And so it's not just your desires that matter, it's everyone's desires that matter, because you're connected to all things. So think of the human body. The hands can't say, I'm more important than the head. All the toes, the hands, the wrists, everything is equally needed, and it's part of the whole function. Yes, we have an understanding that there's fingers here and toes over there. They're all connected to the same body. And if any one of those things believed that it was independent from the whole body, the body wouldn't function as it needs to. So it's important as we think of the abundance network, think of it as a functioning, conscious, living being that is the immune system of the planet, and it is creating and detoxing the planet, and it's shifting things, and it's helping us, it's putting us in alignment to exactly where we need to be, that will have the highest leverage point of creating the most change in the safest way. And the only way we can know what that is by tuning into that vibration, tuning in to that matrix, and allowing it to guide us rather than allowing the lack matrix to guide us. So feel free to share your questions and thoughts in the group this week. Our group call will be next Wednesday for those of you who are on the first. Some of you might be listening to this way later. So, but those of you who are getting this week, next Wednesday is when we're having our first group call at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And the information to that is in the email that I sent with this video. So I hope you guys are doing well. Feel free to ask any questions, share your experience or thoughts about this abundance matrix. And thank you for your patience with me as I'm creating a lot right now. I'm in a very creative spot, and kind of taking its own direction. So thank you for kind of being, in this sense, the VIP group is a rough draft for a lot of new material that's coming through. So thank you guys for being a part of it. And I can't wait to see what we build and create together. Love you.